Hello, my beautiful guys and dolls, and welcome to an episode of Before the Curtain. I'm your host, Abbie Campbell, and we are here to discover the passion behind the performance. Artists of all backgrounds will share their stories about what it takes to create, survive, and thrive in the competitive world of entertainment. Finding inspiration in their journeys, we aim to bring you everything that happens before the curtain. Our fabulous guest today is a director, choreographer, producer, and visionary that pours his heart into his craft. With 25 years in the industry, he has spread his artistry across the country, entertaining millions of people. Revolutionizing large-scale productions he has created for Disney and the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood, the Grammys, AT&T, Gap, Universal Studios, Showtime, Petco, Royal Caribbean Cruises, Celebrity Cruises, Beachbody, and the Power Rangers. Most recently, though, he has produced and directed the Marvel presentation at Comic-Con for Deadpool vs. Wolverine. He's worked with world-class casinos, Aria, Bellagio, The Mirage, The Wynn, Mandela Bay, Atlantis, and Caesar's Palace. Not only has he produced shows for these big-name companies, but he's also worked with these big-name artists, including the Kardashians, Katy Perry, Ryan Seacrest, Jennifer Lopez, Christina Aguilera, and Reese Witherspoon. As the executive producer of Entertainment Plus Productions, he is here today to share his story behind this dynamic company. My guys and dolls, please help me welcome to the mic the outstanding, the passionate Doug Johnson.
Woohoo! Thanks for having me, Cutie Pie. That was a lot, right? Too much.
It's perfect. It's perfect. So just jumping right in, when did EPlus Productions become an idea for you to create?
So, as I was a performer, we always have to keep balancing and looking and trying to find new things. So I got to a point in my career where I just got tired of working for crazy people, you know, people that yell and scream at us and then want us to go be great. You know, I know, I know we can all relate to that. So I was already doing choreography. I was already directing, but I wanted to have my own say because I learned early as a choreographer, if you're not the producer, okay, great. Lime green jumpsuits. Oh, okay, sure. Oh, you want us to dance on water and you're going to shoot fire at us. Okay. So in the early 2000s is when I really got real. And I became a corporation and did it right because I wanted to, not have producer amnesia. I knew that I wanted to pay people on time and treat people with respect and dignity. And, when you create that family atmosphere, it's fun. It's, people will do anything for you when we work together and make something magical happen. So 2001 is when the actual birth legally happened. 98 was sort of my beginning of doing some other things as a company and getting paid with Entertainment Plus name as opposed to my name. So, but yeah, 2001 is when on the books it became the real deal.
And what did that process look like becoming a full-blown company?
Well, I had to get real. I just couldn't, I was already paying taxes, but I was paying taxes with my personal social security number. So tax ID, insurance, the real deal that, putting myself on the line. I didn't want to risk my home. I didn't want to risk my livelihood in case, God forbid, something should happen. So again, I wanted to do it right. So I hired an accountant. I got contracts looked over by lawyers and just wanted to set the foundation before I jumped into the oblivion, so that I wouldn't get dinged down the road. And,
right.
Because the government, they will find us. They want their money.
They will come knocking.
That's right.
What was the process like to find a team for the company, or did you just kind of start everything on your own and reach out from there after everything was set up?
So I crawled before I walked. So piece at a time. My husband helped me form the company, and we did again piece by piece by piece. We would have fittings here at our home. So the neighbors were like, what's going on down there? There'd be 20, 30 people coming and going, beautiful model types, dancers coming and going. And then we would rent a truck, and then we would load the truck, and then we would go and do the gig, and then we would load the truck, my husband and I. And, so piece by piece by piece, person by person, step by step, we just sort of gathered an army over the decades of people that we love and trust that, I learned a long time ago, you can't be an island. You have to surround yourself by people more talented than you are, you know?
Mm.
And, there was a moment where I hired every choreographer known to man. They had won Emmys and blah, blah, blah. And a wonderful girl named Melissa Garcia, who's now Fancy Pants, working for Silent House, producing things for legendary artists. She recommended 2 choreographers to me that were brothers that was choreographing for her, Kevin and Marcel Wilson. And that was one of my favorite moments of my career where I didn't have to micromanage every single step. Choreographers that understood not just camera work, but they understood how to put a production together. And I wouldn't have to be at rehearsal every single second to micromanage. And we all know those names. And not only are they talented, but they're sweethearts. And that's the name of the game for me. I want to work with people that are inspiring not only to me, but to people that work for them, but also that are lovely and sweet and know how to treat talent correctly and with respect. Yes, we demand a lot. We push a lot. You know that. Personally, you know, I like to be too much, but at the same time, we give people the proper tools to do their job, correctly. And at the end of the day, we should be having a good time because we're not curing cancer here. We're working really hard, but we should be able to do it with dignity and respect.
Absolutely. And yeah, from personal experience, I loved it. I love the energy that you're in the rehearsal, but you're also really, again, pushing, but it feels so supportive at the same time. Because there's some gigs that are nice and light and easy to do, and we're just, whether it's just cheering on like the crowd or the event. But then there's some events that it's like you can really, really push. And being in the industry as a dancer, it feels so nice to be on those gigs that's like, "Oh, I'm being pushed. This is nice." Like, being in every way.
Absolutely. And also be able to use those techniques, those talents that you've spent a bazillion hours of your life training, as opposed to just doing a little kickball change. Let's let's find those things. Let's push those boundaries and highlight moments that we are like, but don't show me things that you don't want to be on stage. Don't be over there at the side doing triple turns with an aerial because I see you. That will be on stage at some moment. But it doesn't it feel good to be able to let it out, to be
Oh,
able
yeah.
to use those skills that we spend our whole life trying to be fabulous with. Yeah.
Amen.
Mediocrity, not my friend. We want to
Yeah.
be better than that. We want to rise up and be the very, very best it can be. I said 100 years ago, I can't look at myself in the mirror if I don't do it to my very, very, very best, which is with my entire team. So,
Mm.
choreography, costuming, talent, lighting, sound, if we all come together, it makes something truly spectacular. And our guests and our clients know it. And they come back year after year after year because of that.
Mhm. It absolutely shines through. If you're I mean, yeah, from everybody involved, and that's just such a special space to create and space to present as well, which is amazing. So you originally started this in LA, is that correct?
I did. I mean, I grew up in Alabama where boys did not dance. I grew up in the church playing the piano and singing in a little town a mile square with 7 churches. Hello. My first real job in the arts was in Atlanta at Six Flags over Georgia, and I grew up kinda poor, and my family lost their minds because I quit my job at Macy's as an executive, making more money than probably anybody in my family had ever made, to be a singer at the Crystal Pistol Show at Six Flags over in Georgia. They did not understand that at all. But when they came to see the show, again, and I speak with a Southern accent, but let me tell you, it was real bad the whole time. It was 4 years of voice and diction, so I didn't talk like my people. But when my family came, they were like, "Well, when'd you learn to do all that?" You know? So I learned show business by doing show business. Again, like I mentioned about the company, I learned myself step by step by step by step by piece. I
Mhm.
was a singer at Six Flags, but I'm like, "What's that?" Tap dancing, show me. And it just was within me and it came naturally. And this little nobody from Butthole, Alabama. My first year, I ended up being dance captain. What? Like, when they said my name, I was like, "Yay for wait, that's me. Wait, what?" Because I knew clearly that there were people that danced way better than me,
Mhm.
but it's because I had a head for business, and I also was respectful, and I was fun, and I had that Southern charm that has worked for me, you know?
Mhm.
But, yeah, so that really kicked it off, and then when I came to LA, in Atlanta, I was the guy. I had long hair, and I looked like a lion's mane, and it was like, "Hey, get the guy with that hair." And when I came here, I thought I'd be a big old star here, but this was early on in the Paula Abdul era, and there were boys a foot taller than me with arms as big as my legs, and like, so I tanned and grew facial hair and tried to be all that. Not so much, but I had a great career still. I found other ways to work, and tours were not my thing, but film and television and events and gigging and surviving and saying that, "Sure, I can do that. Sure," and then learning how to do that for the next job, you know? So
Was it difficult at all to start the company and getting clients and gigs without, like, stepping on anybody's toes in the city that you start in that city? Sorry.
so let me sidebar a second. In the
Uh-huh.
'90s, someone asked me to go to San Diego to a gay rodeo. A gay rodeo? I'm from Alabama. I don't wanna go to some stupid gay rodeo, but I went to a gay rodeo, and I went to the entertainment tent,
Mhm.
and it was quite wonderful where it was normal people, accountants, lawyers, whatever, would be clogging or singing or whatever, but they weren't pros, and I'm like, "Hmm, is this what's representing our community?" Like, I can so the next year, I came back with 11 guys, and we were the Midnight Cowboys, and because of that, we did every benefit known to man with Elizabeth Taylor's and everyone in Hollywood, and we were on television with the Donnie Marie show, and had the internet been what it was, we would have been stars. Anyway, but I went to another person that had a team kind of like this, and I just said, "Hey, FYI, I'm going to do this." And they were really not quite so kind because they didn't really understand what we would be doing, and then we became, the it. We flew all over
Mhm.
the country doing stuff, and I did the same thing with Entertainment Plus. There were a couple other people that had companies, and I met with them just to say, "Hey, I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm not doing your thing. I'm gonna do it my way."
Mhm.
Because just like you said, we don't wanna step on people. We want to build relationships so that we can give and take between it. I don't really care whose name is at the top as long as we're working and we're doing great work and people have the same work ethic as we do, it's all good. I tried to be careful that we didn't trample or I use the word rape and pillage because I don't like that done to me because that's not very nice when people underbid or do things that are
Mhm.
a bit deceitful.
Mhm.
Um, so we want to do it right, and we did it right, and people took notice. And I typed away on my computer as much as I possibly could. I knew that I could deliver proposals quickly, and that worked because other people had companies that were really large and took a week to turn around, but I could turn it around in 24 hours because it was just me.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so we just tried to jump off the boat really quick and step into it.
Mhm. That's really admirable of you to, like, let the people that you knew and worked for know that you're starting your own thing. Feel like it's probably really easy for people to just be like, "I'm just gonna do my own thing, like, I don't need to let anybody know." Or like, "I'm just gonna take the business." So that's really cool.
Right, and that's, in my contracts that you've signed, it's like
Mm,
if people ask you about work, you should come to me, and
mhm,
that's what I do when I'm on jobs with you. If people ask for our business card, I give them the people that have hired us their business card
mhm.
because that's how they know us. And
Yeah.
sometimes our clients will say, "Sure, go direct. It's all good." Sometimes clients will say, "No, let's make sure that we're together." And probably only a couple times in my entire career where a dancer got asked at a party direct by a guest did it come back to sort of bite me. Where, but again, that talent was very young and didn't really understand. It was just a princess party or it was just a whatever. But
Mhm,
my client was furious. So I
mhm,
had to sort of say the sorry, sorry, we didn't know, she didn't know.
Yeah.
thing. But, you know, we just have to be careful and be respectful that we're not, if a client calls me, sorry, if my client's client calls me direct, I call that client the very next phone call to say, hey, FYI, what's up?
Mhm.
Because if you do that, if you become that person, if you become that vendor,
Mhm.
very soon you will not have work
Yeah.
because you have to be ethical. You have to be forthright so that people know we can trust, we can be on Zooms, we can be on Teams meetings with our client's client and be a shining star for them.
Mhm.
And should something happen, we'll come right back to our client, that our client knows we have their back.
Mhm.
Because again, you can be out of business and you can be blackballed really quickly in this town if that's the person that you are. It's interesting. Talent say to me all the time, say nice things about me. And I say, I only say what you write. Be on time, be lovely, be sweet, be personal, but be full out,
Mhm.
lazy, not hardworking, not dependable. So be what you want people around you to say about you. And when this phone rings, you want people to be like, "Oh, it's Doug," as opposed to, "Oh, it's Doug." We don't want our legacy to be tombstones behind us because it's a very small pool of people that actually really work. And we all check up on each other. Hey, I see this person worked for you. How was it?
Mhm.
So be what you want me to say.
Mm.
Don't be what you don't want me to say. you know, I'll never be unkind, but I will say this was my experience.
Mhm.
Hardworking, easy, fun, always blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Careful, yeah, because otherwise it's unfortunate.
Right. Well, that goes back to, like, the whole ethical thing. You're being honest of what your experience was, and it's it's cool to see how those values have already we've already explained how they have been woven into many parts of our conversation already, and it's cool. I love seeing those values that people hold and the way that, like, the branches, like, the roots and the branches, that come off and how they operate, what they say, what they believe, and how they what they do. That's really cool. So, what was it like? Okay, wait. I'm not gonna ask that question yet. How did you learn how to, like, write contracts or write proposals for clients as a new company?
So I remembered contracts that I had signed.
Mm,
I remembered contracts that, from film or TV or like all of those things. I tried to pull things that I thought were important. And then I spoke with a lawyer, and my first sort of attempt at the contract was, I don't know, way too many pages. And a great lawyer at the very beginning said, fewer words, Doug, fewer words to argue about in court. But
mhm,
okay. So I just tried to be straight and to the point. This
mhm,
is what we're doing. This is what we're asking. However, there is a whole page, the last page of our contract, they're about the terms, the do's and don'ts. Don't say bad things on social media about the client. Don't show up with vulgar saying t-shirts, things that you would assume would be a no-brainer.
mm,
No, no.
mhm.
So that portion of my contract gets longer and longer every year because people still shock the hell out of me where I'm like, I have to tell you not to bring your child or your dog to the event.
Oh my god, wait, has that happened?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. You know, just things that it's not possible. Yeah. Oh, I brought my husband to what?
Oh.
You know, well, I thought they could just sit in a seat. No, this is a gala. Every seat is like $2,500. Like, I'm sorry, they may have to sit in the car, or, if I can put them to work, then maybe I
Mhm.
can call them a PA. But yeah, yeah. But just, I tried to find things that wasn't so mumbo jumbo,
Mhm,
wasn't so big words that
mhm.
I couldn't understand it. If I can't understand it, then how would you understand it?
Mm,
If I have to have a lawyer to tell me what blah 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 blah. A
yeah.
lot of things now because of social media. again, the contracts that I'm signing
Mhm.
reflect the contracts that you signed and, in perpetuity and blah, 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 with our photographs. And, you know, we do a lot of high profile things. So Getty Images are there. Well, why is Getty Images selling pictures of my talent? We were at the Grammys. I get it, but I've argued about that to not so much success. I'm like, show me the waiver. But
Mm.
because we're out in that world, they seem to think that, you know, it goes with the territory if you're performing with a celebrity.
Uh-huh.
Sorta, but that that argument continues.
Yeah. So on that kind of theme, what are some other things that you learned along this journey so far that you were like, wow, never thought I had to think about this, or I never thought I had to have this conversation, or work this, or handle this?
Yeah. Saying exactly with clients what we're doing, saying exactly the time that we're doing it, where especially when there are things that are not industry, when they are social, weddings, whatever it would be. So we're supposed to perform at 8:30 and things are late. So I try to work in a little caveat that's like, we'll give you an hour for free.
Mhm.
But if it's 10:30 and we're supposed to be on at 8:30, you know, it's not your fault that catering is late, but it's not my fault either that we told, we told our team, "Hey, you're gonna be there for 5 hours," and now they're there for 7 hours. That's not right. So just kind of trying to be graceful in the back and forth with clients to make sure that time is precious and that we are not surprising people. Oh, by the way, we're going to do that production number again. Wait, what? You know, so it's just trying to manage clients that they know and that we understand on paper with our contract. This is what we're doing. And anything that you ask us to do beyond 3 performances is
Mhm.
more money, you know?
Mm.
And then I can be able to go back to the talent and say, "Hey, we are going to repeat production 1 because of whatever reason, and you're gonna make blah dollars more,"
Mhm.
so that sometimes, again, if we're at a children's benefit, maybe not more. Maybe there was a thing and we asked for a little bit of a favor, where there's time to ask for favors, but there's times that we know that people have money and that they should be paying.
Mhm.
So, but just trying to learn as we go because the industry changes and we have to change with it within reason. There are still standards that we have to maintain about legalities and about safety and those sort of things that it doesn't matter, that we're now in the social media thing. And, and in my day, we all changed together, just like it was theater. You ran to the wings, you took your clothes off, you put clothes on, you ran right back on.
Mhm.
And now it's not that anymore. And I used to have a changing thing in the corner so that everyone had privacy. When you went to take off your clothes, you had a thing in the corner. But if people felt so inclined that they weren't embarrassed, they would just take their clothes off at their seat. And, you know, for me, it's not a sexual thing. If I'm at a gig, I'm putting on my clothes, I'm taking off my clothes, I'm getting ready. But other people don't reflect that. Other people feel, you know, it's surprising. So we had to separate again. But I tell you, when I go to Macy's and I go in the dressing room, I close and lock the door, because you know, it's not on stage. So that costs more.
Yes, that is an added fee.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, that's funny. What when did you make your extension into Vegas?
So I was very lucky that do we have time for a long story? Not long,
Yeah,
but long story. This is a truth story. You're probably too young to have ever touched AOL. Do you remember AOL?
I do. I never used it, but I heard.
So not so different than now, but the whole dial up, yes. But when you're a young company, how the heck do you find clients? How do you, like how do you make things happen? So there were chat rooms that were event professionals or blah, blah, blah. So I would, and I had a little baby website, and I had as many pictures as I could from stuff that we'd done, especially from Midnight Cowboys, because I had a million things, again, from film and TV and celebrities and whatever. So I used Midnight Cowboys as my catalyst to Entertainment Plus. So I'm talking to Ben in events. Oh, wait, Ben is not in events anymore. Again, full disclosure, full truth. Where, and on AOL, it could be like, you could look for, like, where are they? Like, what chat room are they in? So now they're in something, something, men for men. Ah, Ben must be gay. Okay. So I tried that. I would go into gay chat rooms and be like, hey, blah, blah, blah. I see that you're an event professional. I'm a gay business owner, blah, blah, blah. And some people would be like, buzz off. And other people are like, what's your website? Mm-hmm. And this is the truth. I don't know if I've said this in public before, but here we go. You get the scoop. So one guy I was talking to was like, what's your website? Call me at this number tomorrow. I'm not going to say his name, and I'm not going to say the company name, but I called that number and they said, a major casino special events. Hi, I'm calling for, and I said the name. Hold, please. The guy picked up. Hey, it's Doug. We were talking last night on AOL. Oh, yeah, Doug, look, we've got this high roller thing coming up. And so from a chat room on AOL, I got my first Vegas major casino gig. And 3 years later, I was producing New Year's Eve. So you never know. You never know where, again, polite, when people said buzz off, I buzzed off, but you never know. So I started producing New Year's Eve in 2003.
Wow.
And 22 years later, we're still producing New Year's Eve. And one led to one. And in 2008, at the Rio had a full-time show called Show in the Sky. And the lady that was over entertainment for Bally's, Rio, and Flamingo was also from Alabama. And one of my best buds, Mark Testa, I introduced him to his ex-wife. They have a beautiful daughter together. They still love me. He was the tech director at the Rio, so I would go to the Rio from time to time, and the show was okay. Eddie Morales was in Show in the Sky. I'm not going to say completely unkind things, but the show wasn't my taste at that moment. And God bless everyone. My stuff isn't everyone's taste either. We all have our thing. But I waited my turn, and they had a bid to take over Show in the Sky, and like 25 companies bid, and I got to bid. And even then, my proposals were ridiculous. Imagine our first year when we were going from one casino to a second casino, I met with the entertainment director, and she said, last year I got the B list. Are you going to give me the B list? I'm like, darling, there's not a B list with me. So when I gave her the proposal, it was a giant box, and we knew that the theme was called Cherry Pie. So when you open the lids, this giant box, I found a red Christmas ornament that was as big as a basketball, and it said the name of the event on the back of the lid when it opened up, and there was a garter belt draped across the cherry pie, and beside the name of the event was a cocktail napkin with a lady's lipstick, and written in eyebrow pencil was "For a good time call," and it was my phone number. And then the proposal sat beside the cherry pie. So
I love that.
Let me go back one more story. When a wonderful, wonderful woman named Dawn Hume, who is legendary in Las Vegas, she has been Steve Wynn's event person since the beginning. So we met during one of those moments that I was doing things, and she recommended me to this amazing man named Trevor. Whenever I'm meeting with people, I Google them, I find out about them. What do they like? He liked the Coors Light twins. So the Coors Light twins. Mm-hmm. So when I met with Trevor, I was in a conference room. They brought Trevor in, and I said, "Trevor, I'm so sorry. I FedExed my proposal to you, and it hasn't knock, knock, knock." The door opened, and there were the two Coors Light twins with my proposal, and they came in, and his face was like, and they set the proposal down in front of him, and they said, if you had Doug here for New Year's Eve, we probably would be here too. And at that time, stuff that we can't do anymore, they kissed him on the cheek and they walked out the door and he said, "You're hired."
Oh my gosh, the
So anyway,
presentation is everything.
yes. So show in the sky, I did the same thing. Mine wasn't just like printed, it was a thing. And I met, and my reputation, because I've been doing New Year's in the city, had kind of gotten out. And Debbie, who was this amazing person at the Rio, the queen there. Anyway, she put my proposal last. So 1, 2, 3, 4, la 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 la. Now down to number 25, it's me. And when we got to me, an executive said to her, "This is Doug, right?" And she was like, "I don't know." And it was, a thing. So luckily we got the job. And Eddie Morales was the producer for me. That was on site for our 4-day a week show. And that's how Entertainment Plus became full time in Las Vegas. And then 5 years later in 2013, when the show ended, silly Caesars, silly, Eddie stayed on as my lead producer in Vegas and growing together. And here we are now with a huge office and warehouse and all that in Vegas. And Eddie's still my guy.
Wow. That's so inventive. Where did you come up with the idea to make your proposals so elaborate?
So back to Alabama. So I grew up in a 4-room house with no bathroom with my Aunt Pauline. My Aunt Pauline was a Southern Judge Judy, but funny. Don't mess around with Pauline. So funny, wonderful. My grandparents lived next door, and they were very much a names that you probably will not know, but my granny was very much like Granny on the Beverly Hillbillies. Down home lady, could pick a leaf off a tree and grow it. Just really down home folk. Next door to them was my Aunt Mary Bell, who was the craft queen. Anything possible. But again, not with money. Like we made things out of egg carton crates. We made things that you cut Coca-Cola cans and you rolled them and made them into this little tiny furniture. I mean, anything craft wise, my Aunt Mary Bell was it. And that was in me. I don't know if it was the gay thing or not, but this craft thing, all of that stuff just happened. So when it came time to doing proposals, I knew I didn't want to just give anybody a piece of paper, and their piece of paper might actually be better than mine because, maybe their credits were bigger or whatever. But I knew the presentation of it, that I could be legendary when it came to that, and how, and a new and clever way to make them be like, "Hey, remember when, you know?" So I always try to remember that, especially at the beginning, not just a plain old piece of paper, to make it mean something and make it be memorable. And it worked. So,
Well,
so,
yeah,
so
if
thank you,
that's just the
Alabama.
proposal.
That's right. That's right.
Mm.
And I even, there are sometimes today I do that. Like sometimes for the right client, we will deliver the proposal in person with some beautiful model. You know, it's, how we moved beyond paper, but now it's something else. So,
Well, yeah, if that's just the proposal, that makes them start to think, then what would the event be? If you're putting that much thought and effort into just the idea, like the execution of what you're gonna do, it sets the stage, no pun
right,
intended, for I mean their not imagination, but their confidence in
right.
that presentation is just there.
Well,
That's so
and
inventive.
and it sets the tone right from the beginning that we're creative people and that we'll go the extra mile even when it comes to that. And that's one reason that costumes for me are so over the top and choreography is too much. And, you know, I like it to be, you know, I remember as a performer looking in the mirror and being like, being embarrassed by what I was wearing or being embarrassed what I was doing on stage. Sometimes put on the clothes, don't look in the mirror. I never wanted that. I wanted to make sure that, you know, now we're insta worthy, that we're giving our talent something that they can boost their following just because of what they're wearing or what they're doing from their clip. They can add something to their reel because they're fierce and it looks amazing and the production value is high and it feels no matter even if it is an event, it feels like it's a tour. So
Mm, mm.
gotta shine it up.
Yeah, that's good. What if do you have any stories or experiences you can share of challenges that you faced along the way?
So I've been very lucky in, especially at the beginning, I worked with a lot of crazy people. But because maybe my Southern charm, I also do my job. I never really got that screaming and yelling. And certainly I stood in front of all my people so that they did not receive any nonsense. But I'll tell you a few things where sometimes with clients, you know, I learned also don't perform things that you don't rehearse. And I learned that with a giant national brands, 10,000 person national conference where we had dress rehearsal, and the executive said to me, "Oh, by the way, I've added your music to the video roll." I hadn't given him music. I'd given music to the sound guy. And I'm like, where'd you get them? Oh, no, I had it. I'm like, okay, well, and I tried to ask him another question. He was like, I got it, Doug. Okay. Like there's a time that you have to stop talking. So I said to the cast, hey, everybody, here's what's going down, just so you know, blah, blah, blah. And it was this big sort of surfing extravaganza. And I had the CEO of the company behind this giant curtain on a giant lifeguard stand. And talent was going to kabuki the curtain away, turn the thing around, anyway, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
And I knew 8 seconds in, there was an edit. So I said, I'm going to know 8 seconds in if we're screwed. And so I'm in the wings, production starts, I listen, wrong music. So there's a dancer like right there. And I'm like, they're doing choreography and I'm like, no, really. So they dance over off stage to me. I'm like, go to where the lifeguard stand is and tell them I'm going to tell the crew just to, in a minute and a half, it doesn't matter that it's not to the music. We're going to do the kabuki thing and they're going to turn the people around. She dances on stage, dances behind the curtain thing, tells the people what's going, goes back to her spot, keeps going. No one in the audience knew, and everyone just kept going, even though it was the wrong music. They just kept doing, counts, if you will.
Mhm. Mhm.
And once the guy got revealed, the choreography just sort of stopped, and we faded the music out. And I was on the headset saying, "Okay, here's what's going down." So, so you learn again, you learn by default,
Mhm.
kind of how things happen. And, we've done lots and lots and lots of rehearsal when we never perform. We did a thing for Qatar Airways opened at the Dolby Theater where the Oscars are. He's doing a giant, giant show with like 100 dancers. It was crazy. And a celebrity was ready to go, wasn't going to wait anymore. So our finale cut because the celebrity was ready to go. So that's happened more than I would like to think. I'm like, that's why we always videotape the dress rehearsal
Oh, yeah.
so that you at least, if something horribly goes wrong or you don't get to do it because it gets cut because the celebrity is ready to go. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So, yeah,
That's crazy.
it's never dull.
Oh, no, never dull. This industry is never dull. Oh, yeah. Has there ever been a time in all your experience that you just wanted to throw in the towel and give up?
Well, I probably would be lying if I said no. There's certainly when you're working with people that are not kind, and when you've tried to be as accommodating and as lovely as you possibly can be, and then nothing. My social contracts in LA, because we do a lot of celebrity things, at the top now say this is a 100% guaranteed contract, no cancellations for any reason.
Mm.
One of my favorite party planners here, and we do a lot of non-name drop that I can say here,
Yeah.
but on Christmas Eve, we were doing a show for a celebrity, and they called us 2 weeks before Christmas and asked if we could find 24 girls to do this thing in specific costumes. We found 24 girls. Some decided not to go home because of the pay, blah, blah, blah. We custom made costumes. Christmas Eve morning, the celebrity woke up and decided, I don't want that anymore. So the party planner paid us anyway.
That's
Everyone got paid without working, but people chose not to go home because they thought it might be cool to perform for the celebrity, you
mm,
know? So there are moments like that where you've worked so hard to move heaven and earth and make things happen. And then just with the flick of a thought, it's over, you know, disappointing. Or when you've given everything for a decade or more to a client, and then there's a changing of the guard. And with one chair change, you're out.
mm,
And with the new person in, they don't know that last year you did a favor and did a show half for half price for them,
mm,
or you did X, Y, and Z because your favorite person gave you, a request. So you tried to bend over backwards and do something, but the new person is unaware of all the things that you did. So disappointing sometimes. But I've said this for myself: as long as I'm having fun, I'm going to keep going.
yeah.
You know, and as long as we're performing at premier places and we're not at the nothing wrong with the Kiwanis Club, everybody. But as long as we're not just performing at the Kiwanis Club Cotillion, you know, we want to keep going and doing and pushing and trying to be relevant and try to elevate and try to make sure that standards,
Mm,
are high and, talent are treated properly and all those good things because
yeah.
it doesn't always happen.
The
Hey,
pros need to outweigh the cons.
yeah. Yeah. And, there are moments of what I do, you know, I said to Eddie once upon a time, not too long ago, are you an Aliens fan? You know those movies?
Oh, yeah.
I believe it's Aliens. Sigourney Weaver and a little girl go the wrong way and they end up in an egg chamber. And there's a camera pan where you see the proboscis of the alien lay an egg, and then the camera goes up the proboscis of what's laying the egg, this giant egg chamber thing, to finally you get to her. And it looks like she's sort of just strapped in this egg chamber, and all day long, the queen is just laying eggs. And I said to Eddie, I kind of feel like that sometimes, where I'm just sort of laying creative because I hadn't got to go to rehearsals because we were too busy and I was just a creative guy. I'm like, that's not fun for me. I need to be in the environment. I need to meet people. I want to be with people. I want to be in the studio environment, the creative environment, and not just be this phantom like Charlie's Angels Charlie that no one gets to meet. That's not fun. So we pivoted a little bit and I got to unhook from just being the creative thing and get back in the studio some. So,
Mhm.
because that's where the magic really gets to happen too. And you get to
Yeah.
see the things that you've typed on a computer come to life.
Mhm. So through the ups and the downs, what are some resources or routines that kept you going?
So I've been with my husband for 29 years. Pray for him. I'm a lot, but, having family, I have two dogs that are our children and, you know, being grounded. my grandmother I mentioned that was, you know, the country folk. She died at 98. And even while I was still performing, I would go to Alabama and say, "Hey, I did this, and that, and blah, blah, blah." And my grandmother would listen. And then she would say, "Well, look, did you see that my roses were blooming?" Or, you know, things that remind you of what's really important, people that remind you what's really important. And we have some lovely friends here that are family to us. And, you know, I never wanted a company with bobbleheads around me. You know, I want people to argue with me respectfully why I've lost my mind because I want to do X, Y, Z, you know, or people aren't afraid that I said yet red yesterday and today I say yellow. I'm like, no, it's red. What? Oh, you're right. You know, but people that keep you honest, people that keep you real, people that keep you down to earth and remind you of what's important.
Mhm.
That's the stuff for me. And I work too much. I've tried even in 2025 to curb that. We'll see. Not always so successfully, but you know, we get to do some pretty cool stuff and we get to visit some pretty cool cities. And I'm going to Europe in May for a job, all that, blah, blah, blah. But
Mhm.
I just try to remember where I came from and remember that the little poor boy from Alabama, you know, I couldn't possibly dream what creativity could do. My college professor, people talk about wind beneath my wings. You're the, all that melodrama. I say in a different way to that too. You have to first realize that you actually have wings, you know, and those people in your life that, tell you, you know, what the hell, you know, that you actually realize that there are things within you that can help you elevate and fly above and beyond your upbringing. I'm very, very happy and very, very proud to be from down home country folk because they gave me hard work. They gave me work ethic. They gave me love and understanding when, you know, I've been this since the beginning,
Mhm.
and I could have a football or I could have a Barbie.
Mhm.
And my low nucleus family, I grew up with my aunt. My aunt and my mom kind of had role reversal. And my aunt Pauline, who was more like my mom, you know,
Mhm.
these are people that never said, no, boys don't do that. No, you know, another thing I've not really said out loud before is at 4 years old, my next door neighbor had a baton. And the second that it touched my hand, it was like Thor and the hammer, swear.
Mhm.
And one became two, and two became three.
Mhm.
And again, it's not like we were destitute, but there wasn't a lot of extra money.
Yeah.
So my grandparents and my Aunt Pauline took this 4-year-old boy around North Alabama to talent shows with my 45 standing in line with rock bands and country bands and people very confused. Where was my sister? Obviously, I must be holding her baton for her.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, I won.
That's so cute.
And the $20 or the $50 or the whatever was a cool thing. But, and the audience was like, what is happening? But I was very, very lucky that I had a family that said yes,
Mm.
that allowed me to be who I was and not really understanding the full magnitude of what that really meant. It's
Mhm.
just I was different, and I was always full out and I was always too much. Ask my husband, too much.
Mhm.
But that's also, who I am and how I work. And
Mhm.
I like too much, and excess, please. A little more, please. A little,
Mhm.
I, here's another story for you. You can't see my whole body, but there's my right arm.
Uh-huh.
Probably 10% of people in my life know this. Here's my left arm. I hope you can see, but it doesn't straighten out all the way. Try to be a dancer when both arms don't straighten out all the way. So I dislocated my elbow when I was 13
Oh, wow.
and it just never healed right. And then I was a singer. I wasn't a dancer, and I
Yeah.
loved dancing. And through my career, again, I've done a lot. There were choreographers that understood and allowed me to augment some choreography.
Hmm.
I also was a showman. I also was full out and then some. I tumbled as well.
Yeah.
So my performance ability outweighed my arm ability, you know?
Wow.
So for everyone who's listening, we can't let bullshit keep us away from our destiny. We have to, the very nature of what we do is no. Audition, no. Too tall, too short, too skinny, too fat, too black, too white. No, 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 no. You're hired. Job's over. Guess what? No, 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 too tall, too, da, 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 da. You know, exactly. But
Mm.
here's the thing that I learned in Hollywood. Be yourself. Give it every audition, everything you've got. And if you get it, great. If you don't, it has nothing to do with your talent. It's just and like, I don't know if you've been at an audition that I say it, but at 90% of every audition that we have, I try to say, because this was the crushing moments of our life, as talent, you're all beautiful flowers, but you're a rose and I need a gardenia.
Hmm.
It has nothing to do with you're not talented or you're blah, 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 you know, but did you party all night the night before and you look like crap when you went to the audition? Then
Hmm.
shame on you. Did
Hmm.
you not take class? Did you whatever those other things are? Because the stakes are too high not to show up at auditions at 100%, or
Hmm.
even worse, show up at jobs not 100%.
Amen.
And I try to make sure that for all of our things that we do, we start on time and we end on time, or we end early.
Hmm.
Because believe me, in Hollywood, there are directors, choreographers that late once, you're out.
Hmm.
Because I see that this job is not important enough for you to be on time. So there's about 20 more people that want your job. So bye.
Yeah.
And we
And
tried to
even
install
not,
that.
yeah, and even not fired like right then and there, but like you'll never work again for us. Either one is just, yeah, stakes are
Correct.
high.
So high. And it doesn't mean that we need to be like have anxiety all the
Yeah.
time. And yes, there are moments that we all have flat tires, that we all, whatever those things are, but we also are texting, calling, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell you another story about auditions for me. So I'm giving something away. Shh, don't tell. So if I get your resume and your audition sheet and there's a big red B or big red T on it, you're out because the person that gave you your audition material is listening and watching because that's who you really are out there. And if you had a big red B, we don't like this word, but we're going to say this word. If you had a big red B, you were a bitch, either to the person that were giving your audition materials or maybe to another dancer and how you corresponded with them.
Mhm.
Or a big red T, you caused trouble in some way, either again with the audition people or with another dancer. You wouldn't share, you wouldn't, whatever those things are. But my people saw you
Mhm.
and heard you.
Mhm.
And that's who you really are.
Yeah.
Don't come into the room and try to be smiley, smiley, fabulous, because sooner or later, the person that was out there is going to be that to another dancer or to their dresser or to the hotel person that's trying to check you in, whatever it is. And all of that reflects on my company, you know? And
Absolutely.
if you'll just be kind, even when we don't want to be, if we can find the poker face,
Mhm.
easier said than done sometimes. But, you know, just try to give people the benefit of the doubt and
Right.
rise up and be gracious and be the, turn the other cheek person. Life will be better.
Mm.
Career will be better because, life is too short for bullshit. You
Mhm.
know, it's just lunch. It's not, come on, let's chill out. Why are we getting so upset about some little thing? Road rage is something that's a phenomenon to me where I always say, if you're the person that's raging because someone cut you off, maybe the person that cut you off is a mother with a baby and she dropped the baby bottle and she was trying to pick it up and then she swerved to not, it has nothing to do with you.
Mhm.
And now she's got the baby bottle and she's singing and that person has gone on and now you're all upset for another 30 minutes
Mhm.
for no reason at all, you know? And we let other people rob us of our joy, which
Yeah.
then, especially if we're on our way to an audition.
Mm. Right. I always think, especially when it comes to, like, road rage, going back to that analogy, like, if y let's say, you cut me off, like, I hope you get to your destination on time. Like, I know you need to go, and I hope you get there, and I just hope you get there safely. It's just like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, and engaging
Mhm.
that energy,
Yeah.
no negativity, thank you,
Right.
none of that. We want to be, again, like I said about my company and about people we hire, I want to be surrounded by motivated people,
Mhm.
people that, you know, take creative and make it better than I ever dreamed it to be. You know,
Mhm.
that we together are creating this. I call the show the baby. We're all feeding the baby so that it grows up to be bigger and more rounded, well rounded because so many people are investing in it. I
Absolutely.
can't be so myopic. It has to be one way. And we also can't force audiences to feel exactly what we want them to feel. We can try.
Yeah.
But again, if we, as the collective we, can just be full out.
Uh-huh.
And my dear, you are always full out. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Oh,
But,
thank
you
you.
know, but in my day of what full out used to look like, you know, those are harder to find these days, it seems. Because
Mhm.
sometimes people do
Mhm.
just enough, especially when they have the job, especially if it's an ongoing job,
Mhm.
just enough not to get fired.
Right.
What kind of fun is that? You know, like if I have to be there for you to be amazing,
Mhm.
then we probably aren't really going to work together.
Yeah.
I need you to be amazing because it's your own internal clock.
Yeah, because you want to be,
Correct.
because you have to be.
Correct. That there's no other force within you except to be excellent,
Mhm.
you know? And when we all could rise up to that, that we take the extra step at auditions, I also am like, I can't stop looking at you, because you're so full out, you're so into it.
Mhm.
You're performing from the inside out. We can teach any monkey to flap their arms around sometimes, but it's those things that make it amazing. Katy Perry said something on American Idol a few years ago. A girl was, yeah, 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 woo, all of that,
Mhm.
riffing, riffing, riffing. And she stood up and she said, wow, vocally, that was amazing. And I felt nothing. Same thing. You can turn and spin and flip and do, and, you know, in a funny way, I say, shoot fire at your ass. Good for you. But, you know, if you're not doing it internally, if you're not giving me something that means something, then it's just cotton candy. It tastes good
Yeah.
for a second, and then it's nothing. You know, we've gotta we've gotta touch people, and that's when greatness comes. That's when I think people look our way, is when we really are. And again, they may look your way and it may be the wrong thing for this job, but I had so many jobs that came from just a phone call. I didn't even go to an audition another time because they're like, I remember that guy, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
I also say for everybody, encourage people, the skill sets on the bottom of our resumes, put something ridiculous. I used to have pig calling, swear, because I'm from Alabama. And as God is my witness, people are looking, whatever, and then you can see somebody point and you see other people like point and they're like, they calling? So you at least got their attention. So think about those things of our life. What can we put at the bottom of our resume that's completely insane that you can, sing in Swahili, whatever that is, but just something that's so outrageous. I will tell you one other story. See, I have stories all day long.
I love it. I love it.
Did you ever see that '70s show? Do you know that TV
I've
show?
seen clips, but I haven't seen a lot of it.
So I was a guest star on that '70s show. I'm SAG, all the good stuff. Well, on the bottom of my resume in my skills, I said square dance caller. I was the only person in SAG, evidently, that was a square dance caller. I got direct booked 3 days out, square dance caller. I should have said pig caller.
Oh,
I called a friend who was a square dance person who hooked me up with a square dance caller. I flew like a crazy person over to the square dance caller's house and said, I'm going to be on television in 48 hours. I need to be a square dance caller. So he taught me, and I was actually able. They asked if I could bring a team. Like, oh yeah, since you know a team, I was, sure, no problem. How many people? You want 2 teams or one? So that it was. Anyway, if you watch that '70s show, Square Dancing, you'll see me. But anyway, so I went in and I faked my ass off. But I did exactly what this guy taught me. Thank Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, everybody that they didn't ask for an alteration to it, because I would have been screwed. But anyway, square dance calling.
that's amazing.
So,
I have to go edit my resume now.
well, yes, but I'm telling you, on the skill set, don't just list all the boring stuff. Almost like the first or second thing, put something completely. I have another friend who says burp on command.
Burp?
And she burp.
Oh,
She can burp on command. And they're
uh-huh.
like, you can burp? She's like, yep. And she burps.
I love wow.
Yep.
Yeah, I gotta start thinking about it now.
Yep. All those little, whatever those
Oh,
little
yeah.
crazy things that that your next door neighbor is not going to be able to do, but just be careful that you don't have to call up a square dance caller and learn how to square dance call 48 hours before you're on television. So, yeah.
Oh my god, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, I think I have, 2 more questions before
Play.
we wrap up. What was there a moment, or maybe it's a few moments, that you were in awe about what you have accomplished, whether it be with EPlus Productions or whether it be in your personal performing career?
So, again, I've done this a long time. So, a
Mhm.
million things roll through my head, but can I tell you two? I'll tell you
Mhm.
2 things. So, in 2000, there was the Millennium March on Washington,
Mhm.
and it was a gay thing.
Mhm.
And I directed and choreographed. And we were in this municipal building that had this gigantic staircase. And there are names that you probably will not know, but Leslie Uggams, Rita Morano, Charles Nelson Riley, Billy Porter,
Mm.
like all these legendary people.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. And at the same time that we were doing our thing and so happy to be there was a guy, because it was still open to the public. The staircase was closed off, but there was a guy with a full size cross, like Jaws, through our entire rehearsal, just circled us. And when rehearsal was over, we went outside. There was a barricade, and there were protesters mad that we were there. And there was the guy with the cross, and it was a different time also. So I walked over to the barricade and I looked for someone who wasn't screaming, looked for someone who looked normal.
Mhm.
It wasn't the guy with the cross, but there was a couple, and I stuck my hand out and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Doug." And we had like a 5-minute conversation just about, I'm a person, you're a person, we're all people. We have, we all are different,
Yeah.
but about using our voice.
Mhm.
I always said that when we have Midnight Cowboys again,
Mhm.
We were the shit.
Mhm.
But I didn't care that people thought we were hot.
Mhm.
We did productions that were poignant about gay marriage and other things,
Mhm.
women's rights. Because when you get people's attention, please have something to say,
Mm.
you know? So I try to always use my voice for power and positivity and making a difference. So that was one. Number two, I took a job as a personal assistant in this town. And I guess since it's 20 years later, I can say that it was Jeffrey Katzenberg of DreamWorks. He and his wife were lovely people, lovely, lovely people. They have a spectacular home in Malibu, and I was the manager for that. I took this job thinking it was going to be the best thing for my career. I could be a star. Jeffrey was going to put me in a movie. It was going to be amazing. Well,
Uh-huh.
I met everyone in Hollywood, and I thought, oh my God, they're going to call me in. No, I was the fun Southern guy that ran that house, basically. But I got to do some cool things. The thing that I got to do that was number one on my list is the wife called and said, I'm coming to the house. I also do floral, in case you don't know that. I do flowers. So there were 24 flower arrangements in this house, spectacular house. Anyway, you don't have to do floral. I'm just bringing some guys out. Lo and behold, she left. All the guys stood and they got talking about the president was coming. And every Hollywood lead had been to this house for parties or meetings or whatever. And I finally said, the president of what? And this guy was like, of the United States. I'm like, wait, what? This was a Monday, by the way. The president of the United States, this is Bill Clinton. The president of the United States is coming here to this house? Yes. When? Friday. Wait a minute. The president of the United States is coming to this house on Friday. Yes. So for the next 4 days, they took over our house. I made things ready. The basement was like the secret part where all the stuff was happening. They took over the houses left and right. They blocked off a mile of PCH. There was a SWAT team on the roof. There was a assault vehicle on the sand outside the house. And on Friday at 6 o'clock, Jeffrey Katzenberg's right-hand person opened the front door, walked across the courtyard, opened the house. Doug, meet the president. Mr. President, this is Doug. He runs this house. Hey, Doug. So I spent the weekend with the President of the United States, Bill Clinton, and his daughter, Chelsea, because she was at Stanford. And on Saturday morning, he asked me if I could get rid of everyone in the house so it could just be them, no maids, no whatever. And, I probably could do it so they could just be alone and just be not under. And they played Boggle on the dining room table and she had homework. And so I got to hang out. And also because he's from Arkansas, my accent probably came out a little bit more for that.
Mhm.
Anyway, it was an amazing weekend. And on Tuesday, after they left on Monday, actually, I'll tell you a story. Well, no, I probably shouldn't tell you that story. But anyway, I have crazy stories that are the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. But on Tuesday, a special package came to the residents, and it was an invitation to come to the Christmas lighting at the White House. So Ken and I flew to Washington, and we participated in the Christmas lighting. It rained the whole time. We looked like rats. So I saw one of my Secret Service guys, in which I had sent them televisions and food, make good with Secret Service. So and I'd given up my bedroom to Chelsea. I slept in the service room. Anyway, I said to him, hey, Chelsea used my blow dryer. Where's hers? So they took us in the back way. We are able to kind of get our stuff together. And you fill a little card of how you know the president. You stand in line and they announce you. And in front of us, I don't know who they were, but they were wearing the sash, some
Yeah.
dignitary from some country. And Doug Johnson, Malibu, California. So the first person you greet is Bill. The second person you meet is Hillary. So the wife was at Bill. The sash was at Hillary. Doug, Hillary, look who's here. And they just should have schlubbed those people out. And we got to hang out. But then the guy at the door was like, so they invited us to come back to the White House the next day to the Oval Office, blah, blah, blah. So I'm waiting at this chief of staff's room. Because again, he'd been there. I knew him as well. And sadly, he went away for a second because something was happening, and he came back. He had their cat socks because we were bombing Libya or something crazy. So all of it had to stop. Damn it. But I got to go to the press room and get my picture made behind the podium. And so I got to hang out personally with the president of the United States. So I'll tell you other stories offline.
Okay.
Stuff, but you never know where
Wow.
where our career will take us. You never know what opportunities will open for us if we'll just be present, you
Wow.
know, and be in the moment of our life and be ready. Be
Yeah.
ready for those opportunities because they don't come along sometimes twice.
Mhm.
You know, don't be schlubbing along. Be full out. Be
Yeah.
giving always.
Yeah. Wow. What an incredible story. What incredible stories.
Well, I've been very, very blessed. I've worked my ass off, but you know, I was raised in the words of my people. I was raised right,
Yeah.
and respectful, and I'm hardworking because of the examples I was given, and life is short. I
Mhm.
was 22 2 seconds ago, you know, and
Yeah.
very, very grateful for the things I've got to do, and I still have a lot more to do.
Yeah.
But, we can't just be schlubbing through. This is our life. This is our time, you know? And I grew up in the church, remember, I don't think God beams us off our couch. God helps those who help themselves, We can't expect miracles that are not with hard work. Yes,
Amen.
miracles do happen, but miracles happen when we help them happen.
Yeah.
We're open to them and we are doing our part, you know? It's hard to be a a runway model when you're 5'2", but it doesn't mean that you still can't do some other things
Mhm.
like that. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that there aren't other fashion shows, but
Right.
maybe you're not gonna be on the Victoria's Secret runway, but it means that something else can happen if we are just open to it, you
Right.
know? So,
Absolutely. I asked this question to kinda end the podcast every episode so far. What
yeah.
is your funniest story as a performer so far?
So, again, I have a million of them, but here's the truth. Dance captain that I mentioned at Six Flags, when
Mhm.
we all tell our war stories. So, the the swing was off doing fittings in another building.
Yeah.
Actually, I have 2 things to tell you.
Okay.
One is completely inappropriate, you can decide if you wanna use it, but this is the one that you can't use. So, it's the first transition, and I turn, and a guy walks in front of me to walk down stage to do a solo where there's a mic on a stand waiting for him, and I
Uh-huh.
turn, and there's no guy, and I look, and the guy that's supposed to be walking down to the mic is knocked out in the wings. This is opening weekend. I'm a singer, but I don't know this track, so I'm dance captain. So I start walking toward the mic, knowing full well I don't know what is about. I'm going to pick up a mic to sing a song that I know the background vocals to. So I take the mic off the stand, I get ready, I take a breath, and I fake that the mic doesn't work. And then when it's the chorus of the part that I know, I sing. And then the mic stops working again on the parts that I don't know. so
That's
that
ingenious.
so that's one of my favorite things ever. So use that one. Here's another one for you that's completely inappropriate. I'm sorry, and don't use it if you feel it's completely inappropriate, but here's the other. The same Six Flags took care of their ladies. They provided feminine products for their ladies, but the girls never used them because they smelt like jungle gardenia.
Oh.
Before the show starts, we all gather in this tight, tight, tight clump. They flew this scenery around us, and there was another guy who was hilarious, swear. So we're all there together, quiet. Music's about to start. I hear him. I smell a fresh maxi pad. We fell out. Things fly out. We're dancing. We're going. The next section is the lift section, like 1 and 2 and next. In mid lift, I hear another guy shout out, I got her. So I'm sorry. I don't quite not the podcast word. Just sharing that
That's hilarious.
with you. So,
Oh, that's so perfect, though.
yes. Yes.
I
So,
love it. These are the best. Okay, last question.
yes, ma'am.
For anybody pursuing this industry in any capacity, if you could put your advice into one sentence for them, what would that be?
I'm going to say 2 sentences.
Okay.
My first sentence is, don't do it unless you have passion. You want to dance. You want to be this is your passion. Your passion is not to be famous. Your passion is not to be not to be a YouTube sensation. You're not doing it for the money. You're not doing it for the notoriety. You're not doing it for the fame. You're doing it because you want to, you have to. It's within you. It is part of who you are. It's how you breathe. It's what gets you up in the morning. That's why you do this business, not because of the other bullshit crap. How many followers do you have? All of that. I could care less. When you come into my room, are you talented? Are you nice? Are you sweet? Are you full out? Are you going to give me everything you've got for the X amount of time we have together? That's what's important. Don't be worried about fame. Don't be worried about followers, all of that stuff. To some people it's important. It's not to me. It's not to a lot of producers in this business, and it's a different path. If you want to be a social internet sensation, then that's different than what we're talking about. And that's why I say don't do it unless it really means something to you. Then get ready to struggle, but get ready to have the time of your life if you will let it, if you will be joyful, if you will recognize the little things, if you will be kind to those around you, if you'll leave a legacy of joy and delight behind you, then it's worth the struggle. It's worth the hardship. It's worth every pain, ache, tape it up. Don't be a complainer. Get back out there. Do your job.
Yeah.
Be the fun girl. Be the fun guy. Be those people that people want to cast over and over and over. Be the people that people talk about. Oh my God, what a joy these people were to work with. I can't wait to work with them again, as opposed to one and done. So
I love that.
that's my one sentence statement.
It was perfect. Doug, it's been such an absolute honor to talk to you. I have your social media handles and information that I will put in the description box. Thank you so much for sharing your time and all of your stories and amazing advice.
Abbie, thank you, dear. We appreciate you. Thanks for who you are and what you're doing here. And, we need to use our voice. And congratulations for using your voice and not just talking about doing something, but actually making it happen. Bravo, my dear.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Before the Curtain. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever it is you listen to the podcast. We love to hear your virtual round of applause. If you know of a production or artist that deserves to have their story told, send us an email or message us on Instagram by clicking the link in the description.